Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and good evening everyone, and welcome to our 13th lecture of the Project Management Professional course. And as you know, in the last lecture we concluded explaining the planning process groups or the planning activities of the project in overall. We explained how to put together an integrated project management plan that combines subsidiary plans covering all the aspects of the project as well as other baselines. And the last step was to make sure that all of these plans are well integrated, they don't conflict, there is no contradiction among those plans, they're well balanced, and by doing that, we submit this plan to the top management, to the customer as well, probably. We will be discussing those plans or this plan with them, defending the plan, possibly making some changes according to the perspective of the management and of the customer. And at the end of the day, this plan or the updated plan will be approved. And when approving the project management plan, it's considered a baseline, and there will be no accepted changes unless you submit a formal change request. Now, of course, this is from a traditional project management approach. But from other approaches like iterative, incremental, and agile approaches, then as you know, planning happens or planning takes place at different levels in each iteration or in each sprint, and documentation is barely sufficient, is minimum. We don't use all of those plans and all of those documentations. Documentation is lightweight and is done just in time while we proceed with our project life cycle. Okay, any question about planning? So with this, we conclude the planning activities of the project. Any question? Before we move on and start explaining the execution and monitoring and controlling activities of the project. So basically we titled that with managing your project. So of course, managing encompasses all activities, including planning as well, but we're here focusing on execution and monitoring and controlling at the same time. So basically, when we start executing our project management plan, then the work performance data will start to appear. So this activity, how long did it take, for instance, how much did it cost, what is the status of the product, what is the status of the deliverables, what kind of risks took place, and so on. So we start gathering work performance data. And by analyzing those data, we start interpreting the data and driving work performance information, indicating the performance of the project, whether it's proceeding as per the plan or whether it's not proceeding as per the plan. So how's the performance going? Do we have deficiency in the performance, or is the performance going well? And according to that, we might need to do some changes. So there will be change management activities and processes that we need to do. And this, of course, will lead to updating several documents as well as plans. So basically, there will be project artifacts updates while we do and execute the project. So if you look at it as a flow diagram, we've just concluded finishing the project management plan. And now the project management plan is the center of our focus, right? Because everything that we are doing in the project now is derived, is taken from the project management plan, is done according to the project management plan. So the project management plan with its components, again, is now the center point, the focal point of what we are doing in the project. So basically, it drives the execution, the project execution. And when project execution takes place, so when we start executing the activities that we have identified in the schedule, then we will get the work performance data. And those are raw data that by themselves, they don't hold a meaning. For instance, this activity took 3 days. This doesn't have a meaning or an information about the project performance. This activity took 3 days. This activity cost $3,000. This is a raw data. You need to take the raw data and using controlling processes that compare actually between what was planned and what is implemented, then we compare that. For instance, this activity as per the plan was supposed to take 5 days, but when we executed the activity, it took actually 3 days. So this means that we are ahead of time, right? Ahead of schedule when it comes to this activity. So you start reading information or performance information about the project when you use the controlling processes that actually compares what was planned with what is being implemented or what is actually done. And then you take those information and you aggregate those information through overall project control. And this will yield work performance reports that you need to submit for different stakeholders, especially for the top management and for the customer, indicating the performance measurement of the project, whether the project is proceeding well or is not proceeding well, right? So basically, those reports will be communicated to different stakeholders like team members, like project stakeholders, like customer, like top management. And based on these reports and indicators, performance indicators, if the project was found to have difficulties, then we probably need to do some changes. So we probably need to submit some formal changes. So project, we go through a project change control to request changes to the project management plan. We need to update the project management plan because it was not realistic, because it didn't take into consideration things that we have found out later, and so on. So basically, we might end up updating the project management plan. And when the project management plan is updated, as well as other artifacts, as I mentioned, then again, we need to go through the cycle of execution, controlling processes, overall control of the same cycle. And we continue following this cycle until we finish basically the execution phase of the project. Okay, so this is how we go by when we start executing the activities in the project. So in one hand, we are executing the activities that we have indicated in the project schedule. On the other hand, we are pulling indicators, performance indicators, while monitoring and controlling the project. We are pulling performance indicators about the project and whether the project is proceeding well or is not proceeding well. Okay, so here you go. These are some of the activities that or the project manager takes care of when we start implementing or executing the project. So we start performing activities to accomplish project objectives. We start creating project deliverables as per the plan. We provide, train, manage the team members assigned to the projects, the resources. Obtain, manage, and use different resources, including materials, tools, equipment, facilities, and so on. Establish and manage project communication channels with external and internal. Generate work performance data, such as cost, schedule, technical quality, progress, and status to facilitate forecasting. This will help me also forecast how much time, for instance, I need to finish the project, or how much cost do we need to pay until so we can finish the project, and so on. Manage risks and implement risk response activities, manage sellers and suppliers, manage stakeholders and their engagement level, collect and document lessons learned. Now, this is very important. You need to start immediately collecting and documenting lessons learned. You should not wait until the end of the project. Now, this is a common mistake that many project managers do, that they wait until the end of the project or the end of the phase. So they start collecting and documenting lessons learned. By that time, you will probably forget everything that you have learned in the project. Basically, whenever, this is important, whenever you or the team find out that there is something that could have been done better, you should immediately document it in the lessons learned, so we can benefit from it in the current project and in future projects as well. Okay. Direct and managed project work also requires review of the impact of all project changes and implementation of approved changes. As we mentioned, if we find out that the project is not proceeding well, then we probably need to do some changes or some updates to the project management plan. So we do, or we submit formal change requests. Of course, again, in the traditional approaches. Now, why would we submit change requests? Basically, it's either a corrective action. So we did something wrong and we need to correct it. So we submit a formal change request to correct a bad thing that we did, or a preventive action. So the problem did not take place yet, but if we continue with the plan, there will be a problem. So we need to prevent this problem. So we submit a change request as a preventive action. Or it might be a defect repair. When we create a deliverable that does not meet the quality requirements or the compliance requirements, then this is a defect that we need to repair. And of course, repairing the defect will take time, will take cost, and this requires, again, a formal change request. Okay, so this is what happens in directing and managing project work. Okay, which is, you know, the umbrella of execution of all the project management plan that we have put together. Basically, what we do here is that we take the plan, the whole, again, the subsidiary management plans as a whole, as well as the baselines, and we start executing those plans. We start doing the job as per the plans. On the other side, we also start monitoring and controlling project work. So we start comparing actual project performance against the project management plan to draw, again, information about the project progress and the project performance. We assess performance to determine whether any corrective or preventive actions are indicated, and then recommend those actions as necessary. We identify new risks while we start, or when we start implementing the project and executing the activities. It's very probable that you identify new risks that you were not aware of when you put your plan together, right? So you identify, we start identifying new risks and analyzing them. So again, we go through the process that we have explained. So you identify the risk, you document the risk in the risk register, you do qualitative risk analysis, you do probably quantitative risk analysis, and you prepare a risk response plan, okay? So identify those risks, analyze those risks, track those risks, monitor the existing risks that we have already identified and documented in the risk register. Report the status of those risks. There will be, of course, status project status meeting reviews. So basically, you need to report the status of the project risks as well, and the appropriate appropriate risk response plans are being executed. In case some of the projects took place, then we need, of course, to implement the risk response plans that we have prepared. Another thing is maintaining an accurate, timely information base. So we need to update the information about the project execution, right? And the project performance, and we need to do it on time. So, and we need to communicate it on time as well. So maintain an accurate, timely information base concerning the project's products and their associated documentation throughout project completion, provide information to support status reporting, progress measurement, forecasting. We need also to submit some forecasting indicators. Again, how much time do we forecast the project will take? How much cost do we forecast the project will need in order to finish it, so on. Providing those forecasts to update current cost and current schedule information, monitoring implementation of approved changes. If there were changes that have been approved, then I need to make sure that they have also been implemented. And providing appropriate reporting on project progress and status to the program management. If the project is a part of a program, then I need to report the status, of course, and the progress to the program manager when the project is a part or is a component of another program. Okay, so this is basically what is done while or when we start executing the project. And this is how we monitor and control the project work. Okay, let's now deep dive into project execution and focus on the most important things that you need to do when you start executing your project. And basically those are delivering value. So this is the idea, this is the whole idea, right, of doing the project. We need to deliver value, and probably we need to focus on delivering this value as soon as possible, right? By creating a culture of urgency. So just to make sure that everyone is doing their best, no one is lazy, no one is, trying to avoid doing the work. Then we need to create a culture of urgency to deliver this value. And we depend on that by creating cycles and time boxes, for instance, in the agile approaches, when you have limits of time. And by the end of each iteration or by the end of each sprint, you need to deliver some value to the customer or to the product owner that they can check, validate, and approve or reject. Okay, so again, the main focus here is to deliver business value. So when we start executing, we always assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally. If we can start by delivering value as soon as possible and incrementally as well. And this happens throughout the project. And for agile, that's why in agile approaches, we try to check for the minimum viable product that we can create, which is, again, we explained it earlier, which again, a product that works, but with minimum features and functions, but it's a working product. It's a product that the customer can take and test, okay, and probably even market to see how the market will receive this product. And by this, we can benefit from the feedback that the market could generate according to this prototype or to this minimum viable product. So if there's an opportunity to develop a minimum viable product in VP, then this would be actually a good option. Measure ongoing progress based on methodology. So we need to measure the value, the progress of the value. Are we creating value in increments every or whenever we are proceeding in the project? And we need, of course, to collect and analyze data to make informed project decision. So basically, again, just to remind you, what is the business value? You should keep in mind this very simple equation, right? What is the value? The value is the benefit minus the cost, right? I think we mentioned this equation a long time ago, okay? So basically, you look at the benefits, the business benefits that the project was launched to achieve, and you take out the cost of the project of achieving those benefits, so you get the value. Now again, benefits are not financial all the time. We might think of other benefits, such as improvement in productivity that we want to bring to the working environment or to the people that are working in the organization. The benefit can be represented by the number of new customers that we will attract to be our customers in the business. Or the benefit can be that we will be the first to market this product. This is a completely new product that no other competitor had before, or can compete with us before this product. Or it might be a social benefit, or it might be a technological benefit. Whatever the benefit is, you need to make sure that it is measurable. There's a way to measure it, you know, because if it's not measurable, we cannot really be sure whether there is a value, and the value really, or the benefit exceeds the cost or does not exceed the cost. Okay, so basically we try all the time to make sure, or to measure the benefit, to make sure that it exceeds the cost, so we have always a positive value. Okay, and this is your focus again as a project manager when you lead or when you direct the project execution. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so this is one, the value. Number two, the urgency. Again, you need to create a culture of urgency where we want to ingrain a sense of urgency in the project environment and culture. Establishing and cultivating this urgency environment is ongoing task. You need to make sure that it exists all the time, that all people feel the heat, feel that they need to deliver quickly, with quality, with value. And you do this by articulating the project's importance and vision. You remind the team all the time, you keep the team all the time focused on the vision, and you remind them of the mission, and why is it important to deliver the product of the project, or what we are trying here to do, and why is it important, right? So we get everyone involved and engaged and committed, and they feel that they're accountable and striving to achieve that vision. And we bring in the voice of customers. So for that reason, we hold meetings with the customer in order, you know, to create again this sense of urgency, and to listen to the customer, to the voice of customer, and how they express their desires and how they perceive value. Okay, and we try to maintain this and promote this culture in our day-to-day work, in the daily actions, in the daily meetings, in the, you know, communication that we do. And for that reason, you find Agile is very effective when it comes to urgency, right? Because first of all, you have the time box, you have time limits for everything, for all the meetings, for all the events, for the iteration itself and the sprint itself. And you find this, you know, continuous communication between the team and the product owner, who represents, of course, the customer, and the continuous feedback loops, you know, listening to each other and working with each other and focusing on what should be done, and setting always the expectations, and setting always the definition of done and the acceptance criteria and so on. So for this reason, Agile is very effective and very efficient when it comes to creating value and creating a culture of urgency. So of course, when you do this as well, you need to make sure that you are coordinating with other products, especially if your project is a part of a larger program. Then you need to make sure that your project is well aligned with other projects, and that the product that you are creating is well aligned with other products in the portfolio or in the program. And sometimes you need, you know, to do a delay. Sometimes you need to accelerate a little bit, just to make sure of this alignment, and to make sure that the program components or the portfolio components are all, again, well integrated to achieve the bigger objective or the bigger goal that we are trying to achieve in the organization. Again, when we start execution, the customer and the top management will ask for information, will ask for execution reports. So what's happening? How are things going on in the project, right? So the project manager regularly should create those execution reports, including the work performance data and the work performance information of the project. And this includes things like the project activities. For instance, what are the activities that have been implemented and what are the activities that we will implement in the next phase until the next status report, for instance. What is the status of the deliverables? How is the overall progress going in the project, and so on. It's important to include the status of risks as well, including compliance-related risks, and what are the actions that we are taking to respond to these risks if some of the risks took place. Testing, if we are testing and validating, if we are doing testing and validating activities, then what were the results? Audits and their results as well as any other actions to verify deliverable compliance and to indicate again the progress of the project. So basically, there is no a fixed template for the execution report. There are different execution reports. We have variance reports indicating the variance between the plan versus actual. We have progress reports. We have a status report. So the management, and this is a part of the communication management plan. If you remember, when we developed the communication management plan, we agreed on the different stakeholders on what kind of reports they need and when do they need these reports and how many, for instance, a status meeting, a status review meeting will be. So again, you need to execute your communication management plan, indicating what are the reports and what are the templates. We even developed templates and got those templates approved by the management and the customer of the execution reports that will be submitted. So basically, we submit those reports as per the templates and as per the communication management plan that has been approved as a part of the project management plan. While executing the project as well, you need all the time also to consider continuous improvement, how we can improve the execution. What are the things that we can do to improve the execution of the project? So basically, we review the organization's continuous improvement strategy. The organization itself might have a certain strategy, a certain way of continuous improvement, whether it's plan, do, check, act, or other strategy. And we develop a continuous improvement approach for the project itself that is aligned with the organization strategy, keeping in mind the project goals, expectations, and stakeholders. We use a very important tool that will help us in the continuous improvement, which is the lessons learned. In agile approaches, we use the retrospectives meetings that take place at the end of each sprint, at the end of each iteration, and we discuss how we can improve the performance in the next iteration. And we use lessons learned to improve the organization continuous improvement process, not only the project, but also if there is something that we can add to the organization performance as well that improves the organization performance as well, then we do that as well. Okay. Okay. Agile again creates this culture of urgency and focuses on the value by doing time boxes, by doing incremental delivery, by considering a minimum, creating a minimum viable product, or creating a minimum business increment. When it's not viable to create a minimum viable product, then we might consider creating a minimum business increment, MBI. So as you know, agile approaches uses cycles and time boxes. So each iteration is a cycle, a fixed cycle of time and fixed working block that we need to achieve something at the end of it, right? And all events in the agile approaches are time boxed. There is a limit for them. So basically it keeps the team and it keeps all stakeholders focused on doing the things at the specified time. This also helps us track the performance and measure the performance over time, by measuring how much performance or how much progress are we putting every iteration or in every sprint that we are doing. We focus on incremental delivery, so value should be delivered as soon as possible, and it's delivered by the priority. We focus on delivering a higher customer value first, and then we continue to deliver it throughout the project. The customer, we use or we listen to the customer and expect them to provide the feedback that we need to improve. And basically we adjust our performance and we adjust our processes to enhance the performance based on the feedback. And we keep communication open with other stakeholders, with all stakeholders. And we make sure that the stakeholders receive a usable product that they can revise and that they can use and that they can provide feedback on. And for that reason, we all the time consider in agile approaches a minimum viable product, creating that product that works with minimum features and functions. We call it also bare bones or no frills functionality. So those are the very essential functions that make the product working. And you need to understand the minimum viable product well. For instance, this is not a minimum viable product. When you start, for instance, if the customer asks you to create a vehicle, then you start by creating tires and then putting the tires with the chassis together. And this is not a minimum viable product, right? Because in this scenario, the customer will receive the working product at the end of the project. They will not receive any working product here. Here, there is no working product. But here, for instance, the customer will receive a working product right from the first, probably a couple of iterations in the project. So we start by creating a prototype like a scooter, then a bicycle, then a motorcycle. Of course, this is an example, okay? So it's just a transport tool. So we create the bare bone, something that is working, that the customer can take and test and provide feedback. So it tells you this is okay, we can probably use this for transport, but it's not safe, it's not fast, it's not secure. So let's enhance on this. We enhance on this by adding, more features, like adding bigger wheels, like adding some comfortable seat for the cycler and so on. Okay, so this is a minimum viable product where the customer receives something that works right from the beginning of the project, and they provide feedback in order to continue on and improve and add more features layers and functions layer to the product. Now, sometimes it's not feasible to create a minimum viable product right from the beginning. So we focus on creating what we call a minimum business increment. A minimum business increment, which is basically the smallest amount of value that can be added to the product or service. So we have a product or service that we are working, for instance, to improve. Okay, so for instance, enhancing the performance of this product. This is a minimum business increment that we have added to the product. Okay, so basically, it's again an individual, separate value that can be added to the product that benefits the business or makes the product more efficient or more effective. It enables the project team to deliver bits of value sooner. So we don't have really to wait until we create a complete product, a complete minimum viable product. We can, start by tackling, bits of value that we can enhance and that we can deliver, and the customer also can validate and check and provide feedback as well. Okay, so we call this the minimum business increment. Okay, So basically, this was what you need to focus on while executing the project. So again, delivering value, creating a culture of urgency, and using the tools, for instance, that can help you with that, which is the time boxes, the minimum viable product, or the minimum business increment. Now, let's go further and explore what other things we need to do while we execute the project in details. And again, we're going by the plan, actually. What we are doing in the execution was planned for and discussed in the planning when we explained the planning. For instance, in the planning, we started by delivering or by creating a stakeholder engagement plan, right? That was the first plan that we have developed, stakeholder engagement plan, right? So now when we start executing the project, we need to make sure that stakeholders are engaged. So we need to engage stakeholders. How? By collaboration, by meeting management, by coaching and mentoring, basically by the plan that we have developed and approved, right? So here you go, okay? So when we start execution, we need to focus on collaboration activities. Stakeholders should be collaborating daily in the project. Frequency is important. You cannot, for instance, stop meeting the customer for a long time and then expect that everything is going well and that the customer is happy. Of course, the customer will not be happy. You need to meet the customer on a regular basis. You cannot be away from the customer for a long time, right? Engagement is based on mutual needs, expectations on, as well as the daily collaboration. And this is again something that Agile excels in, because there is, the daily stand-up meeting where everyone meets and discuss, okay? So constant engagement is important, is common. For instance, daily stand-ups, co-locating teams, again in Agile, face-to-face enhances this as well. Schedule sessions like milestone reviews, backlog grooming sessions, project update meetings, all of these meetings as well are collaboration activities that we need to take care of in order to make sure that all stakeholders, again, are engaged, are properly and positively engaged, okay? So this again should be led and should be monitored and should be taken care of by the project manager or the project, again, team lead, okay? If you don't prefer to use in Agile approaches, we mentioned that we don't prefer to use the word project manager. So we use the project leader or team lead or scrum master or coach or whatever, okay? Meetings, again, are very important for this collaboration. But of course, meetings can also be a complete waste of time if you don't manage them well. And for that reason, you have guidelines for facilitating a meeting that you need to take into consideration. First of all, ensure meetings are appropriate to stakeholder engagement. So ensure that meetings are necessary and invite only the concerned stakeholders, not everyone, those who are concerned and those who are not concerned. Okay, so prepare well for your meeting. Set and distribute an agenda prior to the meeting start. Start meeting promptly at time to support a sense of urgency. Don't wait for late people to come to show up. Don't punish the good people by waiting for the, for the late people. Start promptly and end on time as well, as a rule. Review the agenda set prior to the meeting and change stakeholders as stakeholders deem necessary. Maybe some of the stakeholders have some suggestions about the agenda. We can discuss that and we can change the agenda if necessary. Allow others to speak and share as necessary. You need to control who's speaking, but you need also to give the opportunity for people to speak and participate and share their ideas, of course. Take notes or record the meeting with permission, of course. Keep the meeting discussion on topic. Don't discuss lateral subjects, things that are off topic. Control that. You need to keep the people in meeting focused on the topics in the agenda. Recap the meeting when the meeting finishes and any action items to follow with the meeting. Thank everyone for attending. It's important. They need to feel that they are appreciated, that their contribution was appreciated. So you need to thank them and distribute the meeting notes or minutes of meetings or recordings as appropriate. So you need to maintain and to guard these guidelines when you facilitate and when you manage a meeting. Coaching and mentoring is another way of keeping the stakeholders engaged, and we plan for that as well, if you remember. So coaching and mentoring will help team members become more proficient, more efficient, more productive, right? Raise their abilities and their productivity, the output that they can produce, the value that they can produce, increase their knowledge base, increase their skill set, promotes more successful and effectively managed project. With limited time and resources, sometimes you need to sacrifice some of those resources to mentor others. You know, you need to do sometimes some sacrifices. You need to add extra to the budget for the training or mentoring, knowing that there's a return on investment. This is an investment. When you train the people, when you mentor the people, this is an investment in your people that will yield again a better productivity, a better efficiency that will reflect positively on the project, right? Start mentoring the relevant stakeholders in project and expand from there throughout the organization. This can be, you know, a success story that you can build on. If you start properly mentoring the stakeholders, the team that is concerned, and then expand and learn from the experience and expand it throughout the organization, then you might be creating, you know, a culture of continuous learning and continuous, you know, enhancement, continuous improvement in the organization. Now, of course, you need to start by determining who are the relevant stakeholders that should receive this mentoring or that should receive this training. So basically, for instance, if there is a new product owner in the team, then we need to mentor them on how to do grooming, for instance, how to fine-tune the success stories, how to formulate the success stories in the product backlog, right? Because it might be their first experience and they're not well experienced of how to formulate or how to fine-tune the success stories. So we need to mentor them on that, okay? Or for instance, when we onboard a new project team member who will be responsible, for instance, on certain tasks, then we need to explain to them what are the tasks that they need to do and how they do it and how it's indicated in the plan and what is the plan and so on. So basically we need to onboard them well. Sometimes we give them, like, you know, induction training in order to make sure that they will be efficient when they join the team as soon as possible. And one important thing that actually you need to take into consideration, sometimes it shows up in the exam, so you need to pay attention to this. One of the important things that you need to do as a project manager when a new team member comes in is that you share the team charter with them. Remember the team charter, this important document that indicates the ground rules, right? And the how we communicate as a team, how we resolve our conflicts as a team, what are the ground rules, what are the common values, and so on. So basically, this is something important that you need to do whenever a new member joins the team. You need to share with them the team charter so they know exactly what are the ground rules, what are the values, what are the communication protocols, what are the escalation, you know, paths that we have, escalation protocols, and so on. Decision-making approach that we take in the team, and so on, okay? Another example, if you need to train someone on how to purchase new material for the project, then you also deliver this training on how to follow the procurement or the purchasing process in the organization. So all of these are examples on determining the relevant stakeholders and determining their training needs or mentoring needs and delivering this need to them in order to make them more efficient. Okay. We mentioned also in the planning the resources that we need, of course, especially the human resources. So the team, right? And we plan for the team that we need in the project. Who are they? What are their roles, responsibilities, the activity, sorry, the resource calendars, their calendars, and so on. So basically in the execution, we need to, again, execute this plan. So we need to use pre-assignment tools to acquire the resources that we have planned to acquire. We need to make sure that the team that we acquired will be effective throughout the project. So how to make sure that the team is effective. And we need to develop this team as well throughout the project. So basically, first of all, in order to acquire the team, the proper team, to select the proper individuals and the proper team members and join them to the team, you might need to use the pre-assignment tools. Those are the tools that you use in order to properly select the right people for your team. So you might do attitudinal surveys. Basically, those are surveys that we use to check the attitude of those people. Are their attitude acceptable and preferable, and they can work in a team? Do they maintain the same values that we maintain as a team? Do they recognize the same important things that we recognize as a team, and so on? So we check the attitude. Again, I think I mentioned that before. It's very important. The attitude is more important than the skills. You can include people with the right attitude and poor skills, but you cannot take people on board who have the wrong attitude, even if they have the right skills. Okay, so attitude comes first. You might want to do some specific assessments, technical assessments, for instance, to make sure that they have the right skills, those people, so that they can join the team. You might also want to do structured interviews. So basically you have certain questions that you prepare and that you ask for those people, and when you interview them, to make sure that they can deliver what's supposed to be delivered. You might also want to do a focus group. So basically gathering your team and with the new people or with the new candidates, and doing a focus group, discussing an issue that you are having in a project, for instance, and see if the group can work together, if the candidate can speak the same language with the team and can come up with good suggestions, for instance, and is ready to work with the team. He has the spirit. If they, sometimes, some people right from the beginning, you can decide whether this is a good fit and they can fit into the team or not. So you do this kind of focus group in order to see the team dynamics, right? And you can also do ability tests. Some of the organizations, some of the companies even do, for instance, IQ test or EI, emotional intelligence test, in order also to help them determine whether this candidate or this person is a good fit and can join the team or not. So all of these are pre-assignment tools that we use in order to acquire the right resources, the right team, and make sure that we are acquiring the right people and adding the right people to the team, to the resources. Okay, and then you need to make sure again that the team will be effective, okay, and will remain effective throughout the project. So it's the project manager's role to build the team and foster teamwork by working collaboratively. So again, focusing on collaboration, on meeting, on communication channels, on day-to-day interaction, communicate effectively, develop trust among team members, manage conflicts, don't allow conflicts, to go out of control, and promote collaborative decision-making. So when we make decision, again, we try to have everyone participate in the decision-making process, and as well as problem-solving processes, okay, to maintain, again, the effectiveness of the team. And for that reason, we might need to do some team building activities. You know, those are some specific functions or actions that we can take in order to help the team build trust and develop into a productive working environment. For instance, we can offer coaching for them. We can hold information sharing sessions and experience sharing sessions. We can go take dinner together. This is also a team building activity. We can go play football together. This is also a team building activity, okay? So basically what we are trying again is to build trust among the team members and enhance the working environment, making it more efficient and more effective, okay, by working collaboratively. Now, of course, you need to recognize that this cannot be done overnight. No, there is stages of team development. There is what we call team development stages. When you create a team, when you form a team, you don't expect them to give you the best performance right from the first day, because there will be stages that the team need to go through. So the first stage is forming. This is when you form the team and team members get to know each other and trust one another. So you're just introducing them to each other and everyone knows what's the job responsibilities that he holds and so on, but it's not a team yet, right? It's to be a team. Now, after this stage comes a dangerous stage, which is the storming stage, where team members begin to assert themselves. They want to prove that they are the best. Everyone wants to prove that he's the best or she's the best in the team. So they behave, you know, in an assertive way, sometimes in an aggressive way. They want to control. They want to assume, you know, leadership. Okay, so you have this kind of, here you have this kind of conflicts arising between different team members that try to assume, you know, control and assume leadership and assume, you know, their ego. Okay, and of course here you need to focus a lot as a project manager. You need to focus a lot on supporting and directing and coaching the team in order to get them to the next stage, which is the norming stage, where the team begins to work productively without worrying about personal acceptance or control issue. And they start now focusing on doing the things right, and they don't now focus on, you know, other people in the team or assuming control or assuming leadership. So things start to normalize until we reach the best stage, the desired stage, which is the performing stage, where the team is working at optimum productivity and is collaborating easily, communicating freely. There is no fear. There is no ego or self-ego. Okay. And if there are conflicts, the conflicts will be solved openly, honestly. People collaborate in order to solve those issues or those conflicts. So this is the desired, of course, the stage that we try to achieve as soon as possible by bypassing those stages, the forming, the storming, the norming, until we reach the performing. And then the final stage is adjourning, where the team members complete their assigned work and shift to the next project or assigned task. So basically we release them from the project. Okay, so these are the 5 stages of the team development. You probably will get a question about those stages. Okay. Now, in order to make sure that the team is or continues to be effective, and that in order also to measure the performance of the team and make sure that they are the performance of the team is becoming better, then you need to do, of course, a team skill appraisal that enables the team to identify its strengths, weaknesses, and assess opportunities for improvements and build trust and communication mechanisms. So as a team, how can we do better? What are our strengths as a team? What are our weaknesses as a team, and how we can overcome them? We need to come together and discuss this and appraise our skills as a team. We need to build this trust again. We need to move forward, okay, to reach the performance stage. So by doing this, we might identify team preferences, what we like and what we don't like as a team. Aspirations, information process, how we process information and how we share information among each other and with the organization, how we take decisions, how we interact as team members with each other. And again, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and how we can improve, how can we develop our performance as a team, okay? And we also need to do team performance assessment for each individual team member on an ongoing basis. So this can be formal or informal. We need to measure the performance of each team member. And the purpose is to improve the interaction between team members, solve any issues, deal with conflicts, improve skills and competencies, and increase team cohesiveness. Okay, so we support each other. If you have, if you need to learn some skill, I can teach you as a colleague in your team, and you can teach me something else, and we can support each other, right? If we have conflicts, then we discuss them openly, and we collaborate on how to solve those conflicts, and so on. Okay. And you can do this by several techniques, like ask key questions. What are, for instance, what are the obstacles that we are facing in the project, and how do you suggest that we deal with them? Speak to team members frequently through one-to-one meetings and regular project meetings. So speak with them, right? We call it observation and conversation. So you need to converse with the team members, understand their needs, their challenges, provide constructive criticism and acclaim to team members as necessary. We need always to provide them with the feedback, with the right feedback, in order to enhance their skills, right, and their attitude as well. Evaluate individual performance. And sometimes when there is no other way around it, probably you need to remove underperforming team members or reassign their work to a new resource. If you tried to help this team member, if you provided them with the proper training, but still they cannot move on, still they cannot improve their performance, still they cannot deliver what they are supposed to deliver, then you probably need to remove them from the team or reassign them to other work or obtain a new resource for the work that you need in the project. But again, you do this as the last resort, First of all, what we try to do is to support the team by coaching, mentoring, training, whatever we can. But if it's not enough, then we need to remove them out of the team, okay? So we need to keep the team effective again all the time, okay? So these are the tasks that you might want to consider when you do performance assessment. So you compare performance to goals. You set goals basically to all team members, and then every now and then you discuss with them and you compare their performance to the goals that have been set to them. You re-clarify roles and responsibilities every time and discuss their roles and responsibilities all the time. You deliver positive as well as negative feedback. So you tell them what they're doing right and what they are doing wrong, and how can they improve, and what they need to improve, and how you can support them in improving. Discovering unknown or unresolved issues and resolving them, creating and monitoring individual training plans, and establishing future goals. And you do this on regular basis, right? On continuous basis. Okay, feedback again is very important. You need to provide the feedback. It's essential for agility. crucial for all teams in all methodologies, in all approaches, agile or non-agile, and it helps the team improve, right? So what is the appropriate and timely feedback that the project manager should deliver, and when should the project manager deliver? This is the project manager responsibility, and he or she should take care of it. Okay, I think, shall we take, okay, let's take a 15 minutes break, okay, and continue with guidelines to maintain team knowledge transfer. Again, we're still discussing maintaining the team effective, okay? So 15 minutes and we will get back to you. Thank you. See you in 15 minutes. So we're still discussing the execution and the monitoring and controlling of the project, and we started explaining, you know, the basics of the execution and what's done in the execution and monitoring and controlling as well. And then we started discussing the implementation of the different plans, starting by engaging the stakeholders and obtaining the team, acquiring the resources, acquiring the team, and managing and developing the team by keeping them effective. And again, let me remind you that probably the PMI mentions 42% of the questions are focused on people management, but actually I think more than that is basically coming in the exam about people management. So whenever we're discussing, you know, people management, especially the team, there are lots of questions that you will face concerning managing the team, you know, motivating the team, improving the team, managing the team performance, appraisals, team assessment, and so on. So virtual teams, knowledge transfer, all of these are very important actually that you need to keep in mind, especially the things that you know, concern the agile approaches, like, you know, again, co-location, the different roles of the agile team, what is the role of the product owner, what is the role of the scrum master, and so on. So make sure to understand that well, and you can probably answer lots of questions in the exam. So we're still discussing again effective team and how to maintain an effective team, and here is some guidelines to maintain team knowledge transfer, because, you know, one of the important signs of having an effective team is that the team share knowledge. If you want whether your team is effective or not, look at the team interaction. Do they share knowledge, or do the team members tend to, you know, maintain the knowledge for themselves and protect the knowledge that they have, and, you know, trying to act in a protective way? You notice that sometimes, right? You notice sometimes that some people don't share the knowledge that they have. Try to, you know, protect and maintain the knowledge that they have, because they're afraid for some reason, you know, that someone might, you know, take their role, for instance, which is something very unhealthy, by the way, in the team. So one of the things that you need really to keep an eye on is whether the team is sharing this knowledge and sharing the experience as well, and whether there is a knowledge transfer within the team or not. And this is especially a challenge when it comes to virtual team, you know, because they're not working face to face. So what you need basically, again, to focus on as a project manager is collaboration and promoting visibility. Again, using tools that are highly visible, okay? And using the other tools like the team charter, for instance, that we have explained. The team charter indicated how we will communicate, how we will collaborate, how we will share knowledge, how we will transfer knowledge, what is the frequency of the updates that is requested from us, the version control, the supporting tools, and so on. Information radiators, for instance, in agile approaches are very important tools. highly visible tool. Again, the information radiator is a highly visible tool that you can use also to transfer the knowledge and to do this collaboration among the team members. Okay. Now, what happens if some of the team members violate the ground rules indicated in the team charter? First of all, if one of the team members violates one of the ground rules that we have indicated in the team charter, then we try to remediate that. We assess opportunities for remediation, sorry. And we try to look for the reasons. Why did they do that? What's their reasons? How can we, improve on that? How can we avoid that in the future, and so on? Okay, but if this continues, then we probably need to remove this team member or replace them, because it's very important. We cannot violate ground rules. Ground rules are set to be followed. Okay, if someone by mistake violated some ground rules, then we try to rectify this. But if we cannot, then we need to remove this team member, because again, ground rules are very important, and the values that are indicated in the team charter are very important, and they need to be maintained. Okay, and the team needs to focus on the core values like accountability, shared expectations, transparency, and so on. Okay. Of course, communication again is very important between internal and external team members. And by external team members, we mean suppliers. Okay, so regular communication facilitates collaboration between the team and external stakeholders, effective expectations management among the stakeholders, and this is again indicated in the team charter. So the team charter is the tool that we need to use in order to make sure of this alignment of expectations and of the proper communication and collaboration in the project. And one important tool as well is the retrospective. You remember the retrospective, which is the last meeting that we do in a sprint, in the last day of the sprint, where the team meet with the product owner, of course, and with the scrum master or the coach, the team leader, in order to discuss what went well and what went wrong in the iteration or in the sprint, and how we can improve in the next sprint. So this is how the retrospective is basically done. These are the general steps of how to run a retrospective meeting. First of all, you start by setting the stage. So you do some check-in activities to engage the team by asking, for instance, every team member to introduce themselves and the work that they have been responsible for in the iteration. And then you start gathering and sharing data about team performance, who performed well, who performed moderately, who performed bad, earned value analysis, how was the improvement, how was the progress in the project, and so on. We share some performance indicators or metrics, and then we generate insights. What's working for us? What's not working for us? Where are the challenges? What problems did we face in this iteration? How can we overcome them? And so on. So we try to generate insights, discuss, brainstorm, and generate possible solutions or possible improvements that we can implement in the next iteration. And then we make decisions. Basically, we avoid to make more than 2 to 3 decisions maximum. So basically agree on 1 or 2 improvements or changes that we can do in the next iteration or the next sprint. This again is aligned with the Kaizen, with the continuous improvement approach, Kaizen, where you do small increments, small improvements every time, generated or recommended by the team themselves, right? And then you close the meeting, where you basically again focus on or recap the new information, and you give some appreciation to the team and thank yous. Okay, so these are the steps of a retrospective. You might get a question, about how to do a retrospective properly or how to manage a retrospective meeting properly. Okay. Okay. We're still then in the same point, which is to keep the team or to maintain an effective team. And we need to do so, we need also to manage conflicts. So basically, we need to understand what are the causes of conflicts. Why would the team have conflicts? And we need to understand how to manage these conflicts and what are the different approaches of managing conflicts. And we also need to understand a little about change management and theories of change management, because so many conflicts actually take place because of change that is taking place in the organization. Okay, so we need to understand a little bit more about change management. We start by explaining the causes of conflicts, sometimes also referred to as sources of conflicts. So why would we have conflicts in the team or among the stakeholders? Sometimes because of scheduling priorities, where every person thinks that their task is more important than other people's tasks. So, or we have one person to do two tasks and there's a conflict between those two tasks. So this would create a conflict, right? So it might be a lack of resources. We don't have enough people to do the job. So we end up, struggling to assign people to do their tasks. Or it might come as a personal work style conflict, because people have different, personalities and different preferences when it comes to working. So these different work styles can also be a source of conflict. Competition among the individuals in the team, where everyone again tries to prove themselves right, try to claim control in the team, try to claim leadership in the team. So this kind of negative competition can create again conflicts. Or difference in objectives, value, and perceptions. This is very bad. If we have a team with different values or different objectives or different perceptions. And for that reason, we develop a team charter, right? To make sure that we all as a team agree on objectives, values, and perceptions. And by this, we avoid a lot of conflicts. Disagreements about role requirements, work activities, and individual approaches. So disagreement about, for instance, the resources that we need to do this job, or what kind of job is it, or is it feasible or not feasible? Then we have different, opinions about the same thing. And communication breakdowns. Again, if you're working with multinational team that don't speak, for instance, the same language, or that have different language or cultural experiences, then you might have this communication breakdown where messages are not received well or properly, or understood or misunderstood. Then you have again this possibility of conflicts taking place in the team. And something that is important that we need to understand about conflicts, that conflicts are natural. Whenever you have a team, whenever there's a team, there's a conflict. So it's not something that you can completely avoid. Conflicts are natural things in the team. But what we need to do is to manage those conflicts in a healthy way. And actually, conflicts can be, a source of improvement, because if I don't agree with you on a certain way of work, then this might be a good chance for us to discuss and to collaborate to find out what's the best way of doing things, right? And for that reason, it's very important to us to learn how to manage conflicts in a healthy way. But if you don't manage them, ineffective conflict management will lead to destructive behavior. People will behave in a very destructive way. They try to destroy their team members, their team colleagues, their colleagues in the team. They want to prove only themselves. They don't care about other team members. Hostility, poor performance, reduced productivity, all of these are symptoms of inefficient or ineffective conflict management. When you don't manage the conflicts in a healthy way and properly. Okay. So effective conflict management leads to improved understanding, performance, and productivity. And for that reason, you need to manage the conflicts carefully and look for the sources of conflicts, try to minimize the sources of conflicts, for instance, and use the right way of resolving conflicts, as we will discuss later on. Now, one of the things that also causes a lot of conflicts is when we make changes within the organization. For instance, when we restructure the organization, when we change the leadership in the organization, when there is a big change that is taking place in the organization, then we expect lots of conflicts, okay? And when you do that, or when you expect that, you should actually probably try to use one of the common theories that help you manage the change, such as the Lewins-McKenzie 7S model or Cotter's theory. Those are two famous and common approaches to manage change within the organization and within the people, okay, by using different strategies. Now, we are not in the will not be explaining about those approaches, because this is a completely different science, and it has its own. They have also their own body of knowledge and books and even certifications. So we're not discussing them here, but what we are indicating here is that you need to take that into consideration. You need sometimes maybe to integrate change management theories within your project management plan in order to, again, to minimize conflicts in the project, okay? So sometimes you need to integrate a change management program within the project in order, again, to make sure that conflicts are managed properly and in a healthy way, and there's a balancing between the risks and the investment of the change that is taking place. It's flexible, we have ROI on the change that is taking place, and so on. Okay, what are the methods that we can use to resolve the conflicts? You have 5 methods or approaches to resolve conflicts. The first approach is to withdraw or avoid the conflict completely. So basically, you when you withdraw from the conflict, leaving the other party to take the decision or to make whatever they want, then this is a strategy. This is a strategy that you basically need to wisely use. You can use it, for instance, when you realize that the other person or the other party is not thinking properly. Maybe they are very sad, maybe they are very angry, maybe they are very emotional. Then basically it's not reasonable to discuss the issue with them or to discuss the conflict with them. It's better in this scenario to withdraw currently, for time being, withdraw from this conflict and give them some time until they get back to their natural selves, and then you can carry on discussing the conflict. So basically, this is a strategy where where the conflict is not really resolved, but postponed. It will resurface again. We'll have to go through it again. But for certain reasons, you might want to do that, to avoid this conflict or withdraw from this conflict until you have a better setup to go through this conflict. Another way of resolving conflicts is smoothing or accommodating, where we focus on the things that we agree on as two persons in conflict or two parties in conflict. We try to focus on the things that we agree on, and we try to ignore the things that we don't agree on. So basically, we're trying to accommodate the other parties and smooth the conflict in a way that enhances the performance, because we don't want to stop now doing our work. So let's focus on what we agree on, and let's, for time being, ignore the things that we don't agree on until a better chance to discuss those things. So this is another way of of resolving conflicts. The third way of resolving conflicts is compromise or reconcile, where basically we try to find a solution that satisfies both by letting go. By I will accept a certain compromise. I will have to let go something. I will have to make some compromise, and the other party will need to do the same. So we meet in somewhere in the middle, like this, okay? And we do this compromise. Now, compromise is often referred to as a lose-lose situation, because everyone or each one of the two parties let go of something, in order to reach this compromise. So it's looked at as a lose-lose situation, because probably the two parties will not be satisfied by the solution that we have achieved. But again, it's a way to resolve a conflict, okay? The fourth approach is forcing or directing. This is when you force your point of view. This is when you use your formal power. Since you are, for instance, the project manager, or since you are the sponsor of the project, or the top management, the CEO or something, you order them to do what you think is right to do, without looking at their arguments or without discussing with them. Just do what I'm telling you to do. This is forcing. You're forcing your perception. You're forcing your perspective, okay? And of course, we try to avoid this approach unless it's really necessary. Like, for instance, in military situations where you really don't have time to discuss and to prove you need to do things very quickly and very efficiently and effectively, then you probably might end up doing forcing or directing. Now, the best approach, and you try to look for it all the time, whenever you have a conflict, you try to use this approach. And if you get a question in the PMP exam about the best approach, then you look for this approach, which is collaborate and problem solve. So basically, the best way of dealing with a conflict is to confront. It's also called confronting. So we confront the other person that we have a conflict with, and we discuss, we collaborate with them in order to solve the problem that we have, or the issue that we have, or the conflict that we have in hand, okay? This is the best way, because I'm open to you, I'm explaining to you why I don't agree with you, and I'm asking you to collaborate in order to find the better or the best way of doing things. So this is collaboration or problem-solving approach, and it's a win-win situation. And you should always be looking for this approach whenever you have a conflict, okay? So you have here a win-win situation, collaboration and problem-solving. In compromise and reconcile, you have a lose-lose situation. In force and direct, you have win-lose situation, because the one with the formal power is winning and the others are losing. Withdrawing is also a lose-win situation, because someone is withdrawing from the conflict, so they are losing. Smooth accommodating is, depends on the results of the smoothing, but it might be also something that is similar to win-win situation. Okay. Okay. Another point in developing the team and keeping the team effective is managing the team training. And of course, you remember that we developed a training plan for the team, right? So basically, this is where we might need to implement the training plan that we have developed by doing a pre and post training assessment, by also considering certification for the team, by measuring training outcomes, and by pairing and mentoring. So first of all, as discussed previously in the plan, in the training plan, you start by a baseline. You start by a pre-assessment, doing a pre-assessment for the trainees to understand the level that they are standing at before the training. And after completion, after they complete the training, you do a post-assessment, probably with the same questions that you have asked them in the pre-assessment training, to see whether they were able to bridge the gap and acquire the right skills and answer these questions correctly. You might also want to consider certifications. Certifications can be also considered an asset, an addition to the EEFs, to the enterprise environmental factors, because they represent new skills that the team has also acquired in the project. So different certification types can be taken into consideration. Some of these certifications are obtained immediately after the training class, like certifications that you will get by the end of this course, inshallah. Some of them are administered at testing centers or online using a webcam proctor, like the PMP exam as well. Measuring training outcomes is usually done by focusing on very specific question. Is the team now capable of performing the work needed? This is the most important criteria that we need to measure. To measure the effectiveness of the training, we need to check, is the team now capable of performing the work needed or not? If they are capable now, it means that they have benefited from this training. If not, then they haven't probably benefited from this training, okay? So are they able to apply the knowledge and skills at the workplace or not? This is the main question that would help us measure the training outcome. Another way of training is pairing and mentoring, and I think we discussed that before, okay? So pairing, two persons from the team themselves, or for instance, one from the customer side and one from the, from our side. Pairing enables them to reinforce learning in each other. So everyone can teach the other the things that they know. So they exchange knowledge. And this can be very efficient, because since they are only two and they're working together and they're exchanging information together, so this can be very good for knowledge transfer and for sharing this experience. So this is how we do pairing. Mentoring is on the other side. Mentoring is when you have someone who has a better experience, probably a long experience, coaching a less experienced team member. So there is only here one way of transferring knowledge, from the experienced team member to the less experienced team member. And basically pairing work for for the short term, while mentoring works for the long term. When you want to prepare someone to take a role after a while, then you assign them a mentor, someone who has the experience and can deliver can transfer this knowledge and this experience to the to this person, in order for them to be prepared for future positions, for instance. Okay, now relationships of pairing and mentoring can be, or probably most of the time are, informal. So there's no formal kind of you need to mentor this, and there is a checklist of the things that you need to mentor them on. No, it's an informal relationship. It's an ad hoc meetings and ad hoc relationships where they meet and they discuss and they exchange knowledge. And for instance, if it's mentoring, then the mentor explains by telling stories, by indirectly suggesting recommendation, and so on. So this is, it's informal. Most of the time it's not formal, it's informal knowledge transfer strategy. Of course, we discussed also training artifacts that needs to be prepared when we develop the training plan. So these also might change whenever we have changes in the, in the requirements or objectives of the, some, for instance, of the product aspects and so on. So you need also to respond to that. You need to make sure that your training artifacts are up to date and will do exactly the job that is needed by transferring the right skills, the right knowledge, and the right attitude to the trainees or to the people that will take the training. Okay. Again, more on managing virtual team, because there are certain challenges when managing virtual teams, since they don't work together or they don't work face to face. So the the project manager should, practice some power in order to maintain their engagement. And there are certain guidelines that we want also to emphasize. So basically, there is again a risk of, individual team members in a virtual team becoming isolated because they don't interact face to face. So there is a risk of, they feel isolated. And that's why the project manager should, use this influence and power of making them or asking them to focus on the shared commitment versus the individual accomplishment regarding tasks. And by instilling a sense of shared commitments into the team, using the team charter, for instance, again, setting the right ground rules, setting the right communication rules, and so on, reinforcing collaboration, promoting visibility, and reinforcing the team goals over individual performance. We always remind them of the goal for us to achieve as a team, not only for us as individuals. What do we need to achieve in the project? Why the project is important? What's the vision of the project? What's the mission? Why are we doing this? And again, but here you need to be consistent all the time and focusing on doing this all the time, since it's, it's a team that is not interacting face to face. It depends on your definition of power. What do you mean by power? By power, we mean, if you mean influence, then yes, the project manager have influence on everyone. And so as the product owner has an influence, right? But here, what we're discussing is the influence of, again, of maintaining their engagement, of maintaining their commitment as a team, okay? But if you define power as, authority, no, they don't have authority. The project manager does not have authority over the product owner, for instance. They cannot tell the product owner what's to include or what's to exclude from the product backlog, okay? So it's an influence, it's not authority, okay? Great. So here are some guidelines for maintaining virtual team member engagement. Focus on collaboration again, before focusing on tools. Recognize that team formation in virtual environment is difficult, okay? And for that reason, you need to reinforce the team mutual commitments, shared commitments, the vision, the mission of the project. Give feedback, reinforcement again of goals, of objectives, and provide opportunities whenever possible, provide opportunities for team members to meet, even for once a month, if you can do that. If you can bring the virtual team to meet face to face once a month or once every couple of months, then this is good. This would be better because, they get to know each other better, they get to understand and to trust each other better. So whenever you have the chance to bring them to meet face to face, then that would be also a good option to maintain their engagement. guidelines to evaluate the effectiveness of their engagement, track progress of your team. Again, you need to track the performance, to track the progress, to see who was able to achieve the tasks that they have been done to achieve, whether they were able to carry out the work and produce the deliverables requested from them. Ensure meetings like stand-up meetings are not just status updates, but there is also value, commitment, and sharing of knowledge. Use video conferencing tools as much as you can. So it's not only, you know, voice only communicating, but video conference. Time box your meeting again to create the sense of urgency, and use tools such as the fishbowl window. The fishbowl window, I think I explained it also before, where you know, if you have two teams in different locations, then you open a window. So in each office, there is, for instance, a television, and we open a video conference between the two offices continuously, right from when we start work, for instance, at 7 o'clock a.m. until we stop at, for instance, 5 p.m. So this is a continuous, you know, communication window, video conference window that is open, that everyone in this office can see the other people in the other office, and the other people in the other office can see us in this office. And we might also even, you know, communicate through this video conference. So it's an open window throughout the whole day, the whole working day, and the people can, you know, see each other. And this again reduces, you know, the communication barrier that might exist between the two teams. Okay. Any questions so far? Now, as you see, most of the things are, you know, previously explained. We're just explaining now how to implement them, how to make sure that they are well implemented. Okay. Great. Now that we have concluded whatever it comes to team, acquiring the right team, managing the team, and developing the team, let's take another 10 minutes break before we continue to other aspects of execution and monitoring and controlling, and we continue with the scope, which is important. So 10 minutes, let's take a 10 minutes break and get back to you. Okay, see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, and we're still discussing the execution and monitoring and controlling of the project, and we started actually focusing on the most important aspect in this regard, which is the people. Again, the people are the most important thing when executing the project, because they lead the execution, they create the products and the deliverables. So managing them, developing them is very important for the success of the project, and of course the success of the project management plan. Now that we have concluded that, let's move on to managing another aspect of the project, another important aspect of the project, which is the scope of the project. Now, of course, you remember that we have developed a scope management plan. We have identified and collected the requirements and documented those requirements in a requirements traceability matrix. We have defined the scope in a scope statement, and we have developed a scope baseline, which consists of the scope statement, the WBS, and the WBS dictionary. Now, when we start executing the project, we need to make sure that we are delivering the scope, not less, not more. So there is, for instance, no scope creep. There is no gold plating, right? All requirements are satisfied. Acceptance criteria are met. So this is the objective here. The objective here is to execute and to deliver the scope as was planned. Okay. So basically here we will use two terms, and this is important. Now let me explain this on the whiteboard. You have here two terms that we need or that we will use. Verification and validation. Whenever you hear the term verification, then we are referring to the quality control, QC, in the project. So basically, when the team creates the product or the deliverable, they need to make sure that the product or the deliverable meets the quality requirements and the acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria were mentioned in the scope statement, right? So for that reason, the team verify the product. They do a verification of the product, okay? So verification means quality control. And when they finish that, and we submit the product for the customer's approval, then the customer will validate the product. So validation is done by the customer, and to make sure that the product meets the acceptance criteria that were set in the scope statement, right? And the objective here is to obtain a formal acceptance from the customer. Since the product meets the acceptance criteria that were set in the scope statement, then the customer will formally accept the product, okay? Now, which one takes place first, the verification or the validation? Of course, the verification, right? Because we mentioned that the team need to verify, do a quality control before we proceed to submit the product for validation, right? So verification first and then validation, okay? That makes sense? So you need to take care when you use the terms, and in the exam, you need to take care what are the terms that they are using. Okay, so here are the tools and techniques and the terms that are important when you want to verify and validate the scope. The definition of done, we used this term before, right, is a team's checklist of the criteria required to be met so that the deliverable can be considered ready for customer use, okay? Now, who sets the definition of done? Who develops the definition of done? Again, you need to be very careful about that, huh? It's the product owner. The product owner develops the definition of done, okay? And the definition of done now is the team's checklist. The team should verify that the definition of done is met, that all criteria has been met, and with this, the product is now considered ready for customer use, okay? There is another term which is definition of ready. I think we also mentioned it before. The definition of ready is a checklist, is again a team's checklist that a team uses in order to check whether a user story is ready to start working on. You know, we explained that the user story should be formulated in a certain way, right? When a scenario takes place, when something happens, I need to do something so that I get this benefit, right? So there is certain criteria that the team will ask the product owner to meet while formulating the user stories or any feature or requirement. And when the criteria is met, then this user story or this requirement or feature is ready to start or to be started, and the team can start working on it, okay? We call this the definition of ready, DOR, okay? Another term, which is acceptance criteria. Those are set of conditions that are required to be met before a deliverable can be accepted. So acceptance criteria, again, that were mentioned basically in the scope statement, are the must-have requirements that, if not met, the deliverable cannot be accepted. So basically, when the customer validates the scope, the customer validates the scope against the acceptance criteria that have been set in the scope statement, okay? So validate scope is the process of formalizing acceptance of the completed project deliverables by checking the acceptance criteria, okay? Iteration reviews in Agile now, we have the meeting that we call sprint review or iteration review. This meeting, what is the objective of this meeting? This meeting is again validation of the scope, right? Validation of the scope of the sprint. So it's a time-boxed, again, event at the end of the iteration, where the project team shares and demonstrates the work produced to the product owner and to other business stakeholders as well. And they validate this work and make sure that it meets the definition of done, it meets the acceptance criteria that have been set. Variance analysis. Now, whenever you hear the term variance, it means the difference between what have been planned and what have been implemented. Okay, now, of course, the ideal scenario is to have a zero difference. So implemented as planned, but this is of course not realistic. You will always have this difference. You will always have this variance. But we try all the time to minimize this variance, okay? Now this variance can be positive, which is good. It means that you're doing better than was planned. Or the variance can be negative, which is bad. It means that you are doing less or worse than planned. So you can use variance analysis again to check the scope, to check whether you are implementing the scope as planned or you are, you haven't met all these scope requirements, for instance, and acceptance criteria or not. Trend analysis is another analysis that uses a mathematical model to forecast future outcomes based on history and historical results. So we look at the past and try to forecast the future by looking at the trend. Where are we going? Are we going up or down? How is the trend going? Okay. Okay. Quality. Since we mentioned or since we explained the scope, let's explain the quality as well. So managing project quality. Again, we have in the plan, we developed a quality management plan that indicates the quality metrics, the quality assurance measurements, the quality assurance measures that we will take, the quality control measures that we will take, and so on. So basically, we need also to verify, again, the term is verification here. We need to verify the deliverables and make sure that they meet the quality metrics that have been set. So products and outputs are measured against the quality standards set by the project. Now we do again the verification in order to get validated deliverables. You need to do the verification in order to get validated deliverables by the customer. Okay, so we check whether quality standards were met or not. The project performs the verification while the customer validates the scope again, and all project deliverables must be validated based on the quality standards and the acceptance criteria. As we mentioned before, we need also to perform quality audits. And I mentioned to you, whenever we mention this term audit, then it's quality assurance, first of all. And second, to all, audit is about the process, right? So it's a structured, independent process to determine if the project activities comply with policies, processes, and procedures. And it improves the quality performance of the project. And it can be conducted at a scheduled or a random periods. We might sometimes want to tell the team that they will be audited or sometimes we make it as a surprise, as a surprise to the team. We audit them on random basis, okay? And when you do audit, basically you check the implementation of the quality management policy, the collection and use of information. Are the team collecting and using the information properly and according to the policies and procedures and the processes? You check, you use analytical methods for that. You check the cost of quality, you check the quality process design, you check all the processes, and you make sure that the team is following the right processes and the right procedures, and is applying the right policies, okay? And the result of doing audits is all the time about enhancing or updating the processes and standards. So if we find out that there is a better way of doing things, we might update the policy or might update the processes. So lessons learned at the project level might apply to the organization's continuous improvement process, okay? And lessons learned should be escalated and evaluated for use in future projects, okay? So here are some guidelines also to control quality. Now, control quality is about inspection, right? We mentioned that audit is assurance, inspection is control, okay? So we conduct inspections to detect quality errors. We use Pareto diagrams to focus on the corrective actions that we need to do. You know, the 80-20 rule. What are the most important issues that I need to take care of in order to enhance 80% of the performance? We use control charts, you know, the limits between the limits, the upper control limit and the lower control limit, and this, the rule of the 7, if you remember. And we identify ways to eliminate causes and root causes of unsatisfactory results. We use flow charts to identify redundancies, missed steps, or source of quality issues. We initiate process adjustments by implementing corrective or preventive actions, and we continue improving by continuing monitoring, measuring, and adjusting quality. Okay. Bunch list is part of handover, can be conducted early in the project. Snagging or bunch list. I'm not sure of what's the meaning of these terms. Okay, we need to explain more, because we don't use them in our terminology. Okay, maybe they are used in a specific context, in technical context. For us, inspection is quality control. Inspection should be done on regular basis, not only at the handover. No, on regular basis. If we are discussing, yeah, this is what you do. Okay, this is inspection again. Inspection, which is discovering and correcting errors. This is done throughout the project, not only at the handover. This is the verification we mentioned. Okay, so basically you don't wait until you meet the customer in order to, you know, to have the customer validate your job. No, you need to inspect it and to verify it before it goes to the customer. Okay, so you do that all the time throughout the project life cycle. Okay, excellent. Let's stop here. I think this is enough to stop here, and we continue inshallah in the next lecture. Any questions so far? Any question, ladies, gentlemen? Great. So meet you inshallah in the next lecture, and we continue by explaining the procurement, and then moving to other aspects in the course. Thank you, and have a nice evening, and goodbye.